Good afternoon, everybody. So our next presentation, we're going to talk about the selective sync tool that is in Infinite Campus. So my name is Jennifer Winburn, and with me I have,
I hope I can speak. I changed
yeah,
headsets and it wasn't acting right. So, this is Lisa Keeter.
so we're going to take you through the steps, kind of do a little explanation as to why we have this tool in Infinite Campus and the benefits of this tool. So I'm sure everybody knows that Infinite Campus, we basically have two different versions of Infinite Campus. We have the state edition and then we have the district edition. So district, district edition information comes up to State Edition. So there's a tool in Infinite Campus called the Selective Sync tool. It allows you, those that have access to the tool, again, you have to be granted access to have rights to this tool, allows you to sync person identity and enrollment records that are missing between the tool. This tool provides an easy way to correct data that is data discrepancies between the two, and it doesn't cause any impact on the performance of the district when you use this tool. So again, I'm going to just kind of reiterate again, why do we need a selective sync tool? Infinite Campus that uses a data interchange service, it's called a DIS, to facilitate communications between the two systems. So as you enter in information in your district, certain elements automatically sync to State Edition. But sometimes data communication is interrupted, which causes records not to sync from district to state. This doesn't happen often, but unfortunately, we are aware that sometimes records do not sync successfully. So I accidentally clicked twice. So why is it important to make sure all of the data is synced between district edition to state edition? Well, there are several things that is impacted when the records are missing. Student locator is the major one. So if you are looking for a student and that student record has not synced to state edition, you're not going to be able to find them in student locator. You might find them in student locator, but it's going to be the wrong, maybe district, the wrong enrollment that you see when you use student locator, excuse me. Also, student records transfer. If the student's records are not synced and the enrollment records are not synced successfully to state edition, then the student records transfer does not work properly. The records transfer doesn't get sent to the correct district. Of course, we use state edition for state and federal reporting. So if we don't have those records, then they are left out on our reporting. So that's another reason why it's important to make sure all the records are synced. And then, of course, student records, we use State Edition to pull student into student data roster and review, SDRR. If those records are missing from State Edition, then your district assessment coordinator, your school assessment coordinators will not find them in their SDRR application. All right, so how are we going to find students that we don't have their records synced to State Edition? Well, there are two major reports in Infinite Campus that you can run to find these records. So it's the State Person Identity Verification Report. Both of these reports, they're going to communicate with State Edition and then look in your district to make sure they are all the records are synced. So it does a comparison for you. And to find that report, it's under the path of census reports, student person identity verification report, and for the state enrollment verification. Again, it's going to compare local enrollments with state enrollments to compare to make sure that all the enrollments are there. And to find that report, it's under student information, reports, state enrollment verification. So there's technically a third way to find the records that are missing, and that's with the verification summary report. But let me just warn you, I mean, the verification summary report, it's going to pull the top two reports for you. The only difference is if you use the verification summary, you can actually select the person identity and the enrollment at the same time. So it will run the report to get, at the same time, but you have to click and pull up each individual report. So the verification summary, basically what it's doing is it's going to run the state person identity verification report and the state enrollment report just with one click. That's the only difference. So to find the verification summary, it's under System Administration, Data Interchange, and Verification. With the verification summary, there are some other options that you can look to see if the records were synced correctly. But for today, we're just worried about those person identity and the enrollments. So I have for you a couple of examples of the reports because this is the information you're going to need in order to use the selective sync tool. So the top one here on the screen, the state person identity verification report, when you run it, this is what it's going to give you. It's going to look for all people in your district database, and it's going to do a match to see comparison to state edition. So it's looking to make sure that they match. I will warn you that the state person identity verification report, you have to take some time. You have to kind of look at the report to find the information that you're looking for. Because sometimes it's going to pull up a person on there that might be a teacher, which we want the teacher records, or especially for our ATC and CTE teachers, but you might also see some other contacts that didn't sync. So when you're viewing the state person identity verification report, you're going to really drill down and look for students that have a state ID, and then you're going to look at the identity effective date. So you'll see on the sample of this report that there was identity of a person record back in 2017. So what we really want to concentrate on are our students that have that state ID and have an identity effective date within this school year, last school year. But the key element that you get on this report is that that district person ID, because that's the number we're going to be working with. The second example is the state enrollment verification report. So again, it's going to do a comparison of all the local enrollments in your district to state edition, and it's going to return for you the student that has a missing enrollment record at state edition. So the report sample you can see here, it'll give you the student name, the state ID, the district enrollment ID, and the date that the enrollment started and what the status was. So the important number that we're going to work with on the state enrollment verification report is that district enrollment ID. So we're going to move right on in. Lisa, do you have anything you want to add that I've missed?
The only thing I was thinking of is occasionally I have worked on syncing some records that were missing. And it's another data quality issue, but a student has a no-show enrollment and an EO1 or other enrollment in the same year in the same school on the same day, and it can't figure out how to sync those. So it'll just flip-flop them back and forth, and it'll always tell you one is missing because they shouldn't have two enrollments on the same day in the same school. So those are tricky, but if you're banging your head on it, that it keeps coming back, the same kid keeps coming back and it switches the status, look at their enrollment records because there's probably that's the issue. But
Yes, that's a great valid point. All right, so we're going to hop in and go through the selective sync. Again, we're using those two reports to get the identification numbers to run the sync. So tool rights must be given, but to find this, it's under System Administration, Data Utilities, and Resync State Data. Now, not everybody in the district needs to have access to this. This is a very limited tool. So usually your sysadmin for this district possibly a couple other, if you're a large district, you might want to grant access to registrars, something like that, that do like the overall student enrollment, like central office registrar. So this is a limited tool that needs to be given out in the district. All right, so we're going to move on. So I'm going to reference back. So we walked through getting to where the tool is: system administration, data utility, Resync state data, taking the information from our missing person identity. We will, after you click on the selective sync, we're going to click on person identity, and then you're able to type in this box that says enter district person ID. Looking at your verification report, you're going to type that number in. You can enter in multiple person identity numbers here. You don't have to enter just one at a time. So if you know 10 records that you need to sync, you can put them all in at once. So once you've got those IDs entered in, you're going to click the sync button. This does take a few moments to make its connection to the state database. So when you're viewing what has happened, so you waited a few moments, I will give you a tip. Sometimes you do have to toggle away from the selective sync and go right back in order to see the view history button. It just takes a few moments for it to connect, check it out, do that little sync to see if it's going to work or not. And then you get a view history button. So when you click on the view history button, it's going to give you a status. So if you click on view history and it says in progress, means you got to wait a few more minutes. So wait a few moments, navigate to another section, come back to the selective sync. And when it's finished, you're going to get a completion. So when you see it has a completion, you're going to look to verify that the records actually truly synced correctly. So you'll see records 1 out of 1. If you see 1 out of 1, or if you put in 10 person identity numbers and you get 10 out of 10, high five, you were successful. And so you're done, basically. You know that those records have synced to state edition. I would go back and run that verification report just to double check yourself. I'm a double checker, just the way I've always been. What happens though if you run the sync and instead of getting the 1 out of 1 record sync successfully, you may get a 0 out of 1? Well, that means that the number or the sync was not able to take place. So there's a couple of things to do to verify that, especially if you're going to do multiples. So if you do multiples, you can click on this keys. You see it's a hyperlink. And then down here is a little example. It will tell you the IDs that failed. So if the ID failed, we need to reach out and get some more support. So to double check or to reach out and get that support, you'll need to use the SSID issues form. This form is sent to our friends in OFO, usually to Sam Ingstrom and a couple of her buddies, but they will look at this Google form and they'll take it and double check. They will do a sync sometimes, but then they'll submit a ticket to campus because campus has to go in there and work their magic to get that sync to be successful, excuse me. All right. So moving on, again, that was person identities, but the steps are exactly the same for doing an enrollment ID sync. So again, the path is the same. You're looking for that Resync state data, selective sync, and you pull up your missing enrollments verification report. And the number again that you're going to look for is the district enrollment ID. So when you pull up your select objects, you're going to click enrollment. You're going to transfer the number from your report into the box that says enter district enrollment ID, and you're going to click sync. Same thing, it does take a few moments. so Hangout. May need to flip to another section of campus and come back, and then you'll be able to see your view button, which is exactly what we did on the person identity sync. Look at those records to see if they're 1 out of 1. And again, if it fails, reach out using the SSID issues form for that enrollment, and that will get processed, because sometimes, again, we have to reach out to campus to get those to sync successfully. All right, so we went through that quickly. Are there any questions? Let's see. Lisa, anything you want to add?
We have one question, which is why do so many faculty who have not been here in years show up on the report? Maybe because came in from the conversion and they couldn't ever sync because there wasn't enough information. That's why we look for ones that are newer, because some of them you're never going to get to fix. And we focus on the students the most because that's what's going to impact SDRR and student record transfer and transferring a student to a new district. One other advantage over the 2 reports that Jennifer showed, especially the enrollment one, over the verification report, is you have options on it to exclude excluded calendars and things like that, which the verification report gives you a status on every record in the district. So if you've got an excluded calendar or an extra school that's not actually in state edition because it's something you added for local record keeping, like homeschool students, they're never going to sync, and they'll never work, and they always are going to be in your error count. So that enrollment report is helpful because you can limit it to what you really can sync to state edition. So.
Well, thank you both. I do have some news that I'll share here. We want to wish Jennifer Winburn well as she transitions to her last day with KDE will be next Friday. Our loss is Fayette County's gain, so we hate to see her leave, but we're happy for her still. So we know she'll do a great job wherever she is. So thank you all for presenting today, and thank you, Jennifer, for all you've done to support KDE and the districts and the capacity here.
Thank you.